Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I do appreciate you being with me. Hey, before I go on, don't forget the rest of this month, and this this month is getting away from us really, really fast. Okay, but for the rest of November 2022, U.S. orders only, I have a fantastic 3-book special, Like Father, Like Son on Clouds of Glory. Who is this Babylon? And being thrown in free, a third volume. Just go to my website, DonKPreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. Beautiful banner right up at the very top. Click on it. Take advantage of this special 3-book offer that's going to save you over $20. Okay? Give you great information that, look, you really need. In these troublesome times, people's hearts need to be put to rest. Okay. As I had suggested to you, we're connecting the dots between Isaiah chapters 2 through 4 and the prediction of the last days, day of the Lord, to avenge the blood of the martyrs. The last days, day of the Lord, when Israel's men would fall by the edge of the sword, it would be a time of famine, Isaiah chapter 3, verses 1 and following, and it would be the last days, day of the Lord, when men could run to the mountains, hide in the caves, cry to the rocks, fall on us. As we shall see, okay, that passage lies behind and serves as the ground for 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, okay? And it lies up behind, serves as the fountain for Revelation 6, Revelation 16, and Revelation chapter 19. Because Revelation chapter 6 predicted the great day of God's wrath in vindication of the martyrs in direct fulfillment of Isaiah chapter 2, 9 and following, Isaiah 2, 19 and following. So since Isaiah chapter 2 is the prediction of the last days, day of the Lord for the vindication of the martyrs at the day of the Lord, and since Revelation 6 is quoting from Isaiah chapter 2 about the last days, day of the Lord for the vindication of the martyrs, that means that John in Revelation was anticipating the fulfillment of Isaiah chapter 2. But wait, Revelation 16 is about the great day of God's wrath to vindicate the martyrs. Same day of the Lord of Revelation chapter 6. Oh, and then guess what? As I pointed out to you, Isaiah 3:24 tells us that Israel's men would fall by the edge of the sword in this last days, day of the Lord, which would be the time of the war. Jesus, Luke chapter 21 and 24, predicting the last days, day of the Lord, the judgment of Jerusalem for persecuting the martyrs, would be when Israel's men would fall by the edge of the sword. Then, Revelation 19 is also about the last days, day of the Lord. Now, remember, yesterday I demonstrated to you, Revelation 19 is about the second coming of Christ. It is not about some, quote, in history event that is somehow typological of another greater day of the Lord. You know, it blows my mind. I've said this many, many times, how desperate futurists get to try to hang on to their futurist doctrine. It's literally stunning. But I won't go into that. So, keep in mind, once again, Isaiah 2 through 4, last days, day of the Lord, when Israel's men would fall by the edge of the sword at the time of the vindication of the martyrs. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, last days, day of the Lord, citing Isaiah chapter 2 about the great day of the Lord in vindication of the martyrs. Isaiah chapter 6, great day of the Lord in fulfillment of Isaiah at the great and terrible day of the Lord. Revelation 16, the great day of God's wrath in fulfillment of Isaiah 2 through 4, and vindication of the martyrs. Revelation 19, the second coming of Christ, the second coming of Christ to bring salvation is also what? Oh, let me read verses 1 and 2 together, okay? After these things, I heard a loud voice of a great multitude in heaven saying, Hallelujah, salvation and glory and honor and power belong to the Lord our God. For true and righteous are the judgments, because he has judged the great harlot, and which corrupted the earth with her fornication. He has avenged on her the blood of his servants shed by her. You know, one commentator that I have greatly admired through the years, his name is Jim McGuigan. And Jim McGuigan took a relatively early dating for the book of Revelation, but he identified Babylon as Rome. And so when he came to Revelation chapter 19 and verse 2, he says, well, you know, it's estimated that Rome killed all these millions and millions of people. Pardon me. Well, as I point out in my book, Who is This Babylon? Be sure to get yourself a copy. Revelation is not concerned about just any city that killed millions of people. Okay? It's about the vindication of the righteous martyrs of God. It is not how many Goths or Vandals or Visigoths of any of the Germanic tribes. It is not how many people Rome killed in Asia. Revelation is about the vindication of God's martyrs. When I read McGuigan's comments on Revelation 19 and Babylon and all the blood that she had shed, I was literally staggered. Jim McGuigan, in my estimation, had always been extremely logical, focused extremely on exegesis, hermeneutic, even audience relevance. And yet, for him to divert attention away from the fact that Revelation is about the vindication of the martyrs, having nothing whatsoever to do with the overall, may I use the term, generic shedding of blood of countless millions of people throughout the world, that's totally irrelevant. Absolutely, totally irrelevant. Rome is not the city that killed the prophets. Rome was not the city where the Lord was slain. Rome is not the city that killed the apostles and prophets of Jesus. And filling up the measure of her sin, in John's day, and even if you take a late date for the book of Revelation in the 90s, all you have is the Neronic persecution, which was severe to be sure. But guess what? You're left claiming that Domitian persecuted the church and filled up the measure of Rome's sin for shedding the blood of the saints. Wait a minute. More and more scholars, and again, I document this fully in my book, Who is This Babylon? More and more scholars, even late date scholars, are admitting that the evidence that Domitian ever persecuted the church at all is to be challenged. And do you know what that means? That means from the time of Domitian until the time of Decius, Rome had no systematic persecution of the saints whatsoever. Now compare that with the long bloody history of Israel. You go back to the book of Chronicles that teaches us that Israel, in her old covenant history, persecuted the saints, persecuted the prophets. And as Stephen said in Acts chapter 7, accosting the Jewish leaders in the temple. Which of the prophets have you not slain? Folks, where do we find such an accusation labeled or leveled against Rome? We don't. Period. And somebody says, well, the Jews, they called Rome Babylon. Well, here's an interesting fact that I point out in my book, and I document in the book. Even the Jews did not call Rome Babylon until after the fall of Jerusalem. But what the Jews did, how the Jews spoke of Rome is not relevant in the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is written from a distinctly Christian perspective. And remember, Rome never killed a prophet. It's not where the Lord was slain. And on and on. Okay, so got to get to my point. So the judgment of Babylon would be when the martyrs of God would be vindicated. Here's a point you absolutely must catch the power of this. This is a direct citation, a direct echo, if you please, from Deuteronomy chapter 32, which is called the Song of Moses. And twice, actually 3 times, the Song of Moses tells us. Well, let's go back to the prelude. The prelude to the song, Moses told Israel, I know that after my departure, you will grow utterly corrupt. They're going to feel the measure of their sin. Pardon me. So I will tell you what shall befall you in the last days. Now ask yourself a question, once again. If the last days refer to the Christian age, why is Moses concerned about the fate of Old Covenant Israel in the Christian age? Point number 2. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, 19 to 21, 19 and 20 specifically, the Lord said, oh, that they were wise. Oh, that they were considered their last end. Deuteronomy chapter 32, 29 to 31, oh, that they were wise. Oh, that they would consider their last end. So, 3 times, actually, 4, the Song of Moses tells us, point number 1, it's about Israel. It is about Israel's fate. It is about her last end. And guess what would happen? In Deuteronomy 32, verse 43, at the close of this great song about Israel and her last days, it says, rejoice, O Gentiles, with his people, for he has avenged the blood of his saints. Okay, so in Israel's last days, at her last end, God would avenge the blood of the saints. Revelation 19 is about the judgment of Babylon, which is where the Lord was crucified, the city that killed the prophets. And at that judgment of Babylon, God would fulfill Deuteronomy 32, verse 43, which was about Israel's last days. Not about the end of the Christian age, not about the end of time, not about anything in our future, unless you want to say, well, God has not yet avenged the blood of the martyrs in fulfillment of Deuteronomy chapter 32. But if you say that, then that means that Israel remains God's covenant people. And that doesn't work at all. Okay? All right. I'm out of time for today. On the flip side, we're going to discuss Revelation 19 and the description of the coming of the Lord at this last day's day of the Lord to avenge the martyrs, and how that description falsifies futurism. I will see you on the flip side.